Thanks for your feedback. I'll be sure to ignore it at my earliest convenience. I love feedback, as long as it confirms I was right all along. Constructive criticism is like broccoli. You know it's good for you, but you'd rather not have it. Please, tell me more about how you'd do my job better. I'm taking notes on a napkin I plan to throw away. I didn't ask for feedback, but thank you for volunteering to be wrong. Getting feedback is like getting your car inspected. You dread it, but deep down you know it's necessary. Everyone loves feedback until it's about them. I thought I wanted feedback, but turns out I just wanted compliments with data. I'm open to feedback, as long as it's phrased as flattery. My favorite kind of feedback, the kind you give to someone else.
We got all things situated. The mathematics were calculated. I feel wasted and I feel jaded. The process here is so complicated. 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. Let's stay focused on a new setback.
Hey all, it's Tony Volpicello. Welcome to the Career Jigsaw Podcast, Season 4, Episode 1. And this episode is all about receiving feedback. So whether it's negative or constructive feedback, I think we've all gotten it. And if you haven't, I might make the case that you need to seek it out or you simply didn't hear it. Because as hard as it might be to hear, receiving feedback is a golden opportunity to be better. So what is the definition of feedback? Feedback is information or a response given about a person's performance, behavior, or work intended to guide future improvement or reinforce effective actions. To me, it's all about helping you look forward. In simpler terms, it's how someone learns what they're doing well and what could be done better. Okay, so you got some tough, perhaps unexpected feedback. Yes, let's acknowledge it. It doesn't feel great, especially in the moment. But trust me, this is an opportunity. But how you handle that opportunity is the critical part. So here are a few things we're going to touch on today. First, we'll help you understand what type of feedback you are receiving. Second, we're going to help you assess, are you coachable? You might be thinking you're low maintenance, but you're really high maintenance. Third, we'll provide a 10-step framework on how to handle this feedback. And then fourth really is the ultimate goal of today's conversation, which is to help you understand how a perceived negative is a positive. So let's dive right in and talk about the 3 methods of feedback. Because you will need to determine exactly what type of communication you are receiving, so then when you think about your action plan, you really better understand how to move forward. But first is what I call guidance feedback. And this is what we'll talk about really the bulk of today's episode. This is feedback designed to help you improve. It's a look forward. Yes, it's giving you some information about the past, but it's helping you frame the future. The second is criticism feedback. And this is judgment that may discourage you from taking action. I call it hit and run feedback. And then the third is what I call assessment feedback, which is typically your annual review or a formal one-on-one. It's a hard look backwards, it's very formal, and it's designed to give you reflective feedback on your overall performance. Now, the method matters and it doesn't. It doesn't matter because the reaction to the feedback needs to be thoughtful regardless, especially when you consider who's giving you that feedback. Now, it matters engaging your level of seriousness. Now, none of these necessarily are DEFCON 1 types of feedback, but understanding which method was used will help you gauge your overall seriousness, which in turn will help you determine the right amount of follow-up. But I will say one thing up front here. If the first time you're hearing any feedback is in the third bucket, that assessment feedback, your annual review, then I think it's time to ask yourself why. What have I done, or to what level am I coachable that the first time I'm hearing any feedback is in my annual performance appraisal? So again, what is feedback? feedback is information given to help someone improve or understand how they're doing. It's usually very specific, it's constructive, and it focuses on behaviors or outcomes, not the person. So an example might be, hey, your presentation was clear, but the slides felt a little text-heavy. Maybe use some more visuals next time. Great piece of constructive feedback. Criticism, on the other hand, often focuses on what's wrong rather than how to improve. It can feel very personal or judgmental, and it lacks suggestions or balance. An example might be, hey, your slides were boring. So what's important here is first to understand what type of feedback are you getting. Are you getting criticism feedback? Thanks for nothing. Are you getting guidance feedback? Appreciate it very much. Or are you getting assessment feedback, which does have to indicate for you a greater sense of urgency? Today we will focus on how to handle guidance feedback, the kind that was designed to help you be better. All right, no fluff today. Let's get right into it. And let's begin with talking about some rules of engagement. I'm going to go through these rapid fire. First, get beyond disagreement. Okay, you disagree with the feedback. Who cares? This is your boss giving you feedback. You need to run with it. Next, get past being defensive. It's never a winning strategy. Are you really spending any time telling your boss they're wrong? Next, how you handle initially the feedback will set the tone for what happens next. Also, don't assume bad news means the worst. This constructive feedback doesn't necessarily mean the end of something or a serious road you're going to go down. This is feedback designed to help you be better. So don't assume it's bad news and it means a bad outcome. Don't get stuck wasting time making excuses, wallowing in negativity, or getting bogged down whining to others. Focus on taking the feedback and running with it. Also, take a moment to understand this too shall pass. Yes, the feedback feels terrible in the moment, but when you look back later on, you won't feel the same way. Next, don't draw attention to the issue from others. Yes, misery loves company, but in this case, you will only magnify the issue. In your attempt to feel better by telling others, you're only making more people aware of the issue, which in turn is going to make you more uncomfortable about what you need to improve. Next rule of engagement, go on the offensive. Meaning, here's what I'm going to do about it, and I'm going to update you regularly. Another rule of engagement, agree upon the feedback mechanism for improvement updates. So this means and can sound like telling your boss, hey, thank you for the feedback. I appreciate it. Here's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to let you know via email or in our bi-weekly one-on-one how it's going. And to wrap up the rules of engagement, here's my power tip of the day. Periodically ask your boss, what can I do better? To avoid being blindsided. And don't settle for a non-answer. If your boss says, oh, you're doing a great job. No, nothing to worry about. Push for something. There's always something we could all work on. Now, this isn't something you have to do every single time because it can become very annoying to ask, what can I do better? What can I do better? What can I do better? But opening the door up first makes for less surprises in the future. Okay, so earlier I touched on one of the goals for today's episode was to help you understand how coachable you really are. So when you start to ask yourself that question, am I coachable? Here are some questions you can go through to really assess your level of coachability. First one, do you welcome feedback, even when it's uncomfortable? Do you listen without getting defensive? Are you genuinely trying to understand the feedback, especially the kind that stings a little bit? That's a strong sign of coachability. So ask yourself, do I seek feedback or do I avoid it? Do you just wait for it to come your way, or every so often do you ask for it? Second, do you take ownership, not excuses? Coachability means being accountable. So instead of saying, that's not my fault, you say things like, yeah, I see how I could have handled that differently. Owning your mistakes builds trust and signals you're open to learning. Another question I should ask myself, do I act on advice and show progress? So it's not just about listening, It is about applying what you learned. So do people notice improvement after I've received the feedback? If yes, that's a good, strong indication that you are coachable. Another thing to ask yourself is, do I stay curious and ask questions? Coachable people are learners. They ask questions like, what would you have done in that situation? Or, can you walk me through how to approach that differently? This type of curiosity shows humility and a desire to grow. And the last question to ask yourself is, do I reflect on my own behavior? So also, think about being proactively curious here, meaning you just don't wait for feedback to improve yourself. You're not waiting for someone to tell you what to improve upon. You're self-assessing regularly. Your personal plan should include things that you know you aren't great at, but you're working on getting better. So you don't wait for others to point out your blind spots. Instead, you regularly assess them. So you think about things like, what went well? Or what could I improve upon next time? That internal feedback loop is a hallmark of a coachable mindset. So a great way to assess how coachable you really are is to take those 5 questions and score them on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being rarely true, 5 being always true. 5 questions, 1 through 5, add it up. If you score between a 21 and 25, I would say you're highly coachable. You seek growth, you act on feedback. If you score between 16 and 20, say you're mostly coachable. You accept feedback, but maybe you could be more consistent in how you apply it. If you score between 11 and 15, I'd call you somewhat coachable. So you're open to it in theory, but you probably have some resistance to feedback, especially under stress. And if you score below 10, I would say your ability to be coached needs development, and I would consider focusing on your listening and reflection skills to grow your own openness. Okay, so we talked about the types of feedback you could receive: critical, guidance, and assessment. Then we talked a little bit about your level of coachability. So now let's get right into it and talk about, hey, you're right in the middle of being coached. What are the 10 keys to feedback success that I can apply to this process? So first, I would say, make sure you pause before you react. So the coaching here is take a breath, even for a few seconds, just to help you process instead of responding defensively. Emotional control sets the tone for how productive this conversation could be. And this really is a chance to demonstrate your level of coachability, especially up front. You might even think about implementing what I call my 24-hour rule, meaning no response for 24 hours. I use this rule a lot when it comes to big decisions, whether it's buying a car, or when I was working in the workplace, making a hiring decision, but also may work very well here to just take the feedback, process it, digest it, and don't do anything with it other than acknowledge it for 24 hours. Okay, step 2. Really listen. Focus on your understanding and not just you waiting to reply. So ask a clarifying question like, can you give me an example of what you mean? Now, this step is way harder than you think it is. Listening is a skill, and it's got to be something that you're very mindful of and very forceful about. Because in this moment, you are still processing the fact that you're hearing something you didn't ask for or you certainly weren't prepared for. So this step takes some thoughtful effort and focus, and this will show your maturity and engagement. Step 3 is another hard step, and that's separating the message from the delivery. Sometimes the feedback is poorly worded or it comes out with a bit of tension, so you need to look past the tone and really focus on, how do I extract the useful information? Your boss may not have been prepared well for delivering this feedback and they sprung it on you. Put that aside. And again, here's where maybe the 24-hour rule can help. Step 4, assume positive intent, especially if this is from your boss. Most feedback, even when it's blunt, is meant to help you improve, not tear you down. So assuming good intent keeps the conversation constructive, keeps your mind in a good place. And honestly, in many cases, your boss doesn't like doing this any more than you do. And if it's not your boss giving you this feedback, still take the time to assess its worth. Outside of your boss, positive intent isn't always the reason. Step 5, look for patterns. If you hear the same feedback from more than one source, it might be a signal that something might need attention. That consistency is valuable data, and this is key here. You're uncovering a potential blind spot, and others around you care enough to tell you. Step 6, and we've kind of hinted this many times before, but it's worth repeating. Reflect before acting. Don't rush to fix everything immediately. Take time to think about what's valid and what's not. Reflection leads to an overall better approach to your long-term growth. And again, I've stated it many times before already. Think about the 24-hour rule here. I would also argue that when you act fast, it can show a sloppy, kind of quick fix attitude versus caring and more thoughtful planning. Step 7, ask for specific suggestions or examples. If the feedback feels vague, prompt your manager or colleague, coworker, friend with a question like, well, what's one thing I could do differently next time? Or can you give me an example? This will help you turn that criticism into actionable advice. Step 8, and this is crucial, follow up. After you've made changes, circle back to the person who gave you that feedback. It demonstrates accountability and growth and that you care. And think about how you give that feedback and that follow-up. Is it in written form, oral form, or both? And make sure you really understand how you want to approach it. Step 9, don't tie this feedback to your self-worth. Critiques are about performance or behavior, but it's not who you are. Keeping that distinction prevents you from being defensive and builds resilience. And in a prior episode, I talked a lot about how many of us struggle with imposter syndrome. So now is not the time to let that creep in. A chance to improve, this sounds a little corny, but I really do believe it, is a gift. It really is. It may not feel that way at the time, but wouldn't you rather know about a needed area of improvement now versus never finding out or finding out when it's too late? Step 10, use it as a growth tool. Take this feedback and realize it's free professional coaching. People who seek and apply feedback tend to progress faster and earn more trust from leaders around them. And then share these examples with others. These examples of how I took some feedback and did something with it are great on a job interview. They show your willingness to be coached and your commitment to getting better and improving. Okay, so I wanted this episode to be crisp and to the point, and I think we succeeded here. So in closing, here's some things to think about. First, understand what type of communication you are receiving. Is it criticism, guidance, or assessment? Second, honestly gauge your level of coachability. It'll give you a great starting point of where you can improve as someone being coached. And then third, use the 10 steps we just described as guiding principles for how you receive and process this feedback, along with how you respond to it. Hey guys, as always, I hope this was helpful. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll talk to you again soon. Have a great day.